She's watched her whole world crumble. Yeah, that girl. She's the beauty in the struggle. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy you're here. I'm going to start off this episode by saying that, as you've probably known if you've listened to any episodes at all, that I live in Nashville and I absolutely love it and think it's such a magical place. And so I want to tell a story of this full circle moment that I had after living here. I think there was just so much change going on, even in the last year. I came up on a year of living out in Nashville, and I couldn't write myself this story of what has happened and transpired in this town. I don't even know if I ever could have imagined it. So I'm going to kind of take myself back to being in Utah and getting ready to change my whole life up and come to Tennessee. So, as most people know, breakups, divorce, separation, just ending any kind of substantial relationship in your life is so difficult. And both people involved always have different emotions at different times. And I think sometimes it's, especially for the person that's being left, there's anger, then they're trying to get you back, and then confusion. And it's just a big ball of emotions. And it's hard to navigate. And music has always been my greatest way to communicate. I absolutely love lyrics. Music just takes me to where I want to be. And I just love everything about it. I can think back to pretty much my whole relationship of just wanting songs in the background of our drive up the mountain to match the view that I was seeing or the feelings that I had. I'm just very much into almost having a soundtrack of my life, really. So when the separation was happening, there was a lot of back and forth of sending songs. My ex had suddenly loved country music even more than he had before and was digging deep to find some amazing songs that I think he knew I would love based on the lyrics, and he knew they would touch me, and probably in some kind of effort to not just communicate but probably win me back from my love to country music and lyrics that touch your soul. So I remember there was a lot of songs. I remember Ryan Hurd, I Don't Want to Hold You Back, came out in my head, but there was just so many different songs. Some were like angry, some were like do you. It was a whole playlist, really. But the one that stuck out the very most to me was a song called Beauty in the Struggle by Brian Martin. And at the time, I remember my ex had sent it through. And there was never any context. There was no long text associated with it. It was just, here's a song. And I remember he had sent me the song, and I'm in the kitchen of our home that I had lived in and he was no longer in. And I was probably drinking a little wine, just packing up to change my life. And I listened to the song and I couldn't stop crying. So just to give you a little taste, I had never heard this song before at the time. It was super strange to me that I had never came across it before and that he had. And the lyrics began like this. I'll just give a little. She's as real as it gets, and there ain't no way around it. There's a road that's been through hell, and she's been down it. She's been mistreated, she's been lied to, and she's seen her share of troubles. But that girl, she's the beauty in the struggle. I was just bawling. And if you go back and listen to that song, it's absolutely beautifully written. Just such the kindest lyrics about a woman that you know, honestly. And as I'm listening to the lyrics of this song, I'm just I don't know what like, there was so many things going through my head. I know one weirdly was, how did he find this song and I've never heard it? But the biggest one was like, this man knows me so well and thinks so highly of me, and he's known me for so long. Will any other man ever think of me in this same way? Like, I'm leaving someone that genuinely knows my heart, knows who I am, knows everything I've been through, and has been there for me and still thinks I'm the beauty in the struggle, really. And that is honestly, a dream to find someone that loves you that hard as the way that song just gives off. It's just so beautifully written and produced, and everything about the song is perfect, and I just was like, "How is this what I'm doing?" And I remember sending the song to one of my friends and just like, "How do I do this?" He just sent me this song, and everyone was like, "Oh my god." Like, if you listen, you're just so that song just became one that I couldn't stop listening to even though it made me cry every single time. I was just in love with it. And weirdly enough, I'm gonna say that looking back, like, usually I do some, like, digging on artists if I hadn't, like, heard their song before and I start going down that rabbit hole, but for some reason in this instance, like, so much was going on in my life that I didn't. But I was just in love with this song. So, that's probably fall before I moved to Tennessee. Now, fast forward, that song I've always loved and I've thought of fondly all the time. So now here we are in Nashville, all this time later. It's January 8th, 2024. So just a few months ago. And I had started dry January strong. I was like, "Okay, I'm 8 days in. I got this." And it was the college national championship game, and I was meeting some friends out to watch the game on a Monday. And I remember I had let the dog out in the backyard, and January is always a funk for me. Like, I'm sure like many of us, it's just the weather, and you're just like, I'm supposed to be having this new life, new world, whatever. So the weather stinks. You feel like you've got to accomplish everything because it's a new year. It's all those things, right? Everyone, most of us get that. So, and it being dark is huge for me. I love light. So I was just in a funk and I'm letting the dog out and I post something, I think like a story, and I write, "Daylight's been leaving too soon." And I'm like, "Heather, that's a song. That's the first lyric of a song." So I go back in the house and I just start writing this song. It was one of those where I wrote, verses, chorus, bridge, everything like just in one sitting. And it was really my therapy just getting out like me leaving my ex and all those emotions about how you kind of ruin a person when you leave them. Someone that loved you and knew you and all of those things, and you're leaving them. And the song was very like therapeutic for me to write, but I was also excited about it. I liked it. So I end up being late to meet everyone out for the game because I was writing this song and then I still had to get ready. So I get to the bar. I'm at Live Oak in Nashville, Midtown ish. And I show one of my buddies this song and I'm like, "Hey, this is why I was late. I wrote this song." He's like, "I really like it." Like, but of course it's too loud. We can't talk the melody, but he's like, "Yeah, it's good. I like it." So the next thing you know, somehow he talks me into tequila and dry January just goes out the window. Like, "Good job, Heather, you made it barely a week." So the tequila's flowing and now I'm just on a high. I'm excited. I was excited about this song that I wrote and it felt like maybe I just needed to release it. So it was kind of like a weight lifted. I don't know if you can feel that when you just jot stuff down and you get that emotion out, kind of gives you a second wind to just be in the zone. So I was just happy to have that energy released and or those emotions. So we're drinking at Live Oak. I'm sticking to tequila, so it's gonna be a night. I can feel it. So we end up going to Midtown, then we're at Losers. And at this point, I am pretty drunk. Not only have I like not drank in a week, which I know isn't a long time, but at that point in my life, it felt like a minute. And tequila on an empty stomach is always going to be a wild time. So we're drinking, and there's a guy that's about to go on stage to sing at Losers because they often let people that have, and that sing on the stage. And my buddy goes, "Why don't you show that guy your song?" And I'm like, "Okay." I'm just drunk and I'm like, I'm not drunk. Like, sober me is not just like going up to someone I don't even know and just showing him a song, because I don't even normally like talk much about my songwriting. It's really like therapeutic for me. I don't normally like network it. I don't know why I just said, "Okay." And I went up to him and I'm like, "Hey, I wrote this song. What do you think?" And he's probably like, "Girl, I'm drinking at Losers. Like, I don't want to see like your notes app with these lyrics." But he was just like, "Oh my God, yeah, I really like it. Da da da." So, anyways, he gets on stage. I'm dancing. I'm drunk. Tequila's flowing. Yada yada yada. And at this point, I'm even messier. So I end up like inviting someone that I had been hanging out with. Like he lived in Nashville, but he's from DC and not really even into country music. And I'm just like, "Oh, come to Losers." So we're all just dancing around. And the next thing you know, it's this group with the guy that looked at my lyrics that my buddy told me to, and the group of friends he was with. They all get like some big van Uber, and there's like 6 guys all loaded up. And I'm out there and it's raining or it's dark, and they're like, "Come in, get in the Uber with us. Like, we're gonna go write music. We're gonna go play songs. Like, do you want to come?" And I'm like thinking like, well, DC guys in there. And like, I don't even know if I don't even know these guys, but, and then the guy in the front's like, "Well, it's a once in a lifetime chance," which I'm like, who even says that? But like, of course, Tequila Me is just like, whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I go tell DC, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go, like, here's my location. I'll let you know if you can come, but I'm going to go write songs or, or at least listen to songs with these guys." He's probably like, "What?" So I'm like, okay. So I get in the Uber, 6 guys that I don't know. So we get back to their Airbnb, and they kind of have things like set up. So it's like, definitely looked like someone had a podcast, or like there was a whole bunch of like mics and stuff, and we're just hanging out. So then like more guys are coming, and I'm still just this only girl, which is fine with me. Like I, was married and hung out with all my ex's buddies, so it's not necessarily weird for me. But I know I don't know any of them, but I recognize some of the people that were coming. So the guy that I showed my song to says, "Well, you can invite your friend." And I'm like, "Okay, good. Then I'll." So I invite DC over. He comes. So it's like him and I, and then a whole bunch of other guys. And there, I, I say again to this guy, I'm like, "I showed you the song. Will you play it? Will you play the song? Like, here's the lyrics. Will you just play it?" Because he had already started playing and singing, and I'm blown away. Like, he's just, the talent in that room was just like so magical. I just couldn't, I was in awe. So he's like, looks at the lyrics, plays the whole, sings and plays, just makes a melody and sings a song on the spot. Like, doesn't, just makes it a song in 5 seconds, literally. The most amazing, like, just hearing him play the melody the way that and I hadn't even really told him, but it was just perfect. And I look back and I'm like, I'm so mad I wasn't recording just so I could hear it again. But I was just in awe. It was absolutely beautiful. And I'm like, what is this life? What is this life? I wrote this song today. Now this guy just made it a song in 5 seconds without even thinking about it. where am I? So him and this other guy are performing these amazing songs, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I end up staying like super late. It's probably like 5 a.m. And me and DC like leave after just being able to like witness these like incredible singer-songwriters. And I just was sitting there like just enjoying every moment. And so we leave. And then the next morning, the DC guy's like, do you know who that was? And I'm like, no. And he was like, oh, that. And he does not like a big like country. He lives in Nashville, but he's not like a big country music guy, but he probably knew he had to be really good because he was. So he's like, that was Brian Martin. And at the time, in that very moment, it didn't register to me. And I normally don't say names, but I have to because the story would not be what it is. And Brian Martin is one of the most amazing humans I've ever known. He's such a kind soul. And so now I feel well enough knowing him to just say that. But so I'm not registering it like that. But I go to find, his songs and I'm like, he solo wrote Beauty in the Struggle. How is that even possible? How is the one song out of the 50 plus that my ex sent me that stood out so hard in my soul, that made me feel so much, that made me just cry every time I heard it, that made me think all of these thoughts that just I could not get over? How is that? And not knowing even who he was. And now, fast forward, not even a year later, I'm in Nashville in some random Airbnb holding lyrics to a song I wrote about my ex, solo wrote myself about my ex, and I'm handing it to the man who solo wrote the song that my ex sent me, and he's singing it. Like, it was just so, like, how would that even be a thing that would even happen, is what I'm thinking in this moment. How, out of everyone I could have met in Nashville, how is that even without even knowing, it was not planned at all. I didn't even know. It was crazy. And it was one of those times where I'm like, Nashville, there is no other place like it. There is absolutely no other place in the whole world like Nashville. There's not. You can't sell me on it. So in all my awe, I just think that I did a lot of like, this is exactly where I need to be. I don't know why, I just know that even more, but there's just been so many moments in my life where I've looked and been like, this is the place for me. And I want to kind of, when I'm telling these, it seems so crazy, and it really is. And it's especially crazy for a Utah girl. Like, obviously, there's people in Utah with musical talent, but it's obviously nowhere near what we have here in Nashville. And I don't think you can even really, I can't even put it into words to my friends back home and people in Utah, or maybe even people outside of Nashville, of just how wild it is, the amount of talent that is in a room at any given time. And it's probably not just even the talent, it's the like strong dedication and desire to do what you love every single day instead of like the status quo journey of life. It's like I'm inspired by not only the amazing amount of talent, like whether it's like a vocalist or songwriting or just musicians in general and all the different instruments they can play and how well they can pick up. anything. It's crazy. But then it's like combine that with like this hard work and dedication to their art and wanting to make that their life. It's so inspiring to be around. And I've just been in rooms where I didn't know who people were, and that happens more often than not. And then you learn and you're just like, it's just like you could feel that energy. You're just so very grateful that you're just surrounded by this like aura of people that are just like excited to do what they love every day. It's so beautiful. And like I talk about music on the podcast and I want to talk about it even more because I'm so inspired to be like, how do I? There's so many people that aren't heard. Like being in Nashville and the amount of artists and talent that, again, like I didn't know who Brian Martin was back home in Utah. And my ex sent me the song and I didn't know. And now I'm just like insane, so insane. And that's a lot of the singers, songwriters out here in Nashville. It's just how am I this lucky to be even hearing them this early on? It's kind of like you get the you get to preview before they, make it big. And that's so exciting because you see their come up. But I know it's hard, right? Like in talking to them, like it's a hard journey. And I think it's changed even more now with social media and all of the avenues and the industry and everything I learn, which is very transferable to corporate America and the kinds of things that happen in that. So every time people are kind of telling me about the music industry, I can translate it into the corporate world and it makes sense to me. But it makes it hard for some people that just want to do authentic music. And so eventually I would love, and I know that I'll go down the path where I would love to highlight these amazing people that don't get as much, I don't know, recognition as they deserve for their amazing abilities. It's just so crazy. But yes, so after that, I'll kind of go back to the whole story. So that happened. And the next night, I did actually have someone else. Showed them it and we made it a song that I really like. But then the following night, I went back out and we had another fun night with Brian and some of his other friends and Josh Terry, which I was just on his podcast, which he's just such a funny guy. But he was there and I remember I had came back and this time there was like a few more girls, but I was just on the couch and I only cared. I wasn't even drinking. I just wanted to hear the music. So I was just sitting on the couch and it probably was like, and I still didn't know them that well at the time. So I'm just sitting on the couch and they're playing music and I'm just an acoustic, I'm a sucker. So even more so, I'm just loving it. And they're so talented and they're writing a song and I'm just taking it all in. I'm like, this is Nashville for me. And I think I fall asleep on the couch like literally now it's just like, I think 4 or 5 of them left. And I just end up falling asleep on the couch. And they're probably like, what is this girl doing here? They're like, you can stay in this spare room. No one's in there. And I was like, no, I'll go. But I was just taking it all in. And I do remember that I told Brian that night that the full circle story for me, that I didn't know that he wrote that song and that then my ex sent it to me and it was a whole thing. And he was like, that song was written for a girl like you. And music is just beautiful like that. You just get to let things out. So, I guess all that to say is that in life, there are always going to be, and I firmly, firmly believe this. One, you have to go out in the world to have experiences so that life can come full circle, so that your eyes can open to new things. I think so much we get wrapped up in being busy and overthinking things, which I am an overthinker, but I try to just say, Yes, more often than not. And you have to be out in the world living to have the experiences that lead you to where you're supposed to be. So if you're just in your same routine, which I know for many of us, like I do love a good routine here and there, but there's times that you just need to kind of shake things up and be out there, seeing new things. I think sometimes people want more from life, but they stay doing what they've always been doing, thinking that they're going to get a different result, right? What they say, it's, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, something like that. I mean, that's really life, I think. Like if I would have stayed in Utah, even not in that relationship anymore, stayed in my job, stayed with my same friends, which I love and they're still my friends, but stayed in that same space and energy, I don't see how I could have ever became this evolved and happy about where I am in my life. Because I wouldn't have ventured far enough away to have to do all the hard work of figuring it all out, making new friends, navigating all of these things that were brand new to me. That's how you can really start allowing new experiences to come into your life. But when you're just like, I've got to do it this way, and if I venture off, then it won't work. I think you kind of like over plan your life and over like you set expectations that you don't even know if are possible. Because a lot of the times it's expectations on other people, which are always out of your control, right? I'm a very firm believer that if you can put yourself in that place and visualize you being there, you can get there. But if it has to do with other people and there's a lot of reliance on other people to get there, that's out of your control. You can only really control what's going on with you. So it's really important to just stay in that space of like, I'm going to take all the actions I can to get this way, but I'm not going to have it perfectly mapped out because there's too many external factors that are going to disappoint me along the way and maybe stop me from wanting to keep going. Because I think whenever we feel defeated or we feel like we've taken 10 steps back, it's like, is this the time I quit? I think that's a lot of how we do things in life. But if we just go, oh, you know what, this is just a bump in the road, let's keep rolling, then it doesn't seem so devastating because we kind of don't expect it to go perfectly smoothly. Like we know that things are going to come up and we're just trusting that they're going to work out for us because they always do, right? I think that like even last night, I went to Whiskey Jam, the first one on the Sky Deck. So amazing. That Whiskey Jam is just the whole vibe of everything that I love about Nashville. And I know it's on Broadway now and people have an opinion about it, but I just think it's great giving access to so many people that wouldn't have the access to those artists. But I digress. And I parked on the street and I didn't pay and I got a ticket, which go figure, but usually I don't. And today I'm like, $70. But then I'm like, I don't know, for some reason it's supposed to be that way. Like I can't even think of it like a bad thing. That's kind of how I'm just rolling with life now. Everything that happens is like in some way happening for me, not to me or against me. And I don't know how to explain that other than just that perspective is working well for me. And I would love you to be able to jump on that bandwagon with me and go, all right, that works. Because I never would have thought in a million years that I would have some of the experiences that I have had. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of them. I'm literally just in awe of the magic. Again, I've brought this up before, but kind of like a kid at Christmas. And it's not even to like, I'm not I think like Nashville is one of those places where you can be out now that I've out enough and you see people and you're like, "Oh, that's a big name. I've heard him on the radio." And I've never been like I don't know, a celebrity, like one of those people that really like has all these celebrities that they idolize, and not in any kind of disrespectful way. Of course, I appreciate and respect the talent and how you came up, but I think like I don't know, they're still just human. I guess I think that about everyone. They're just human. They're doing their thing. Like that was what they were passionate about. And then they made it happen. And so that piece is what's so cool about it. But other than that, they're still just like us. They just are really talented and they dedicated themselves to their art and they put everything they are and so much work into it. And the right things fell into place for them and now they're killing it. But we can all do that in one way or another in our lives. Because I think about my corporate career and I feel like that's what I did. Like if being in corporate was something to talk about or anyone cared, like I felt like I had made my way and I felt good about my brand and who I was. And so I think we can all do that. But it's just giving our own selves the recognition. And I think when you idolize too much, someone and I think it's good to like look up to someone, but if you sometimes I view like idolizing as if they're someone that is so different than you, then it's hard for you to ever become that level because you almost put them on a different one than you, if that makes sense. But I truly believe we're all capable of the biggest things in life. It's just whether or not we want to be there and we want to put in the time and effort to grow any kind of talents that we have and to focus and to put the hard work and dedication in. It's really more, do you want to do the work and not like because you're anyone super special. Don't get me wrong, talent, not everyone has the same talents, but if you have a talent that you love, you can always continue to grow it. So I'm talking a lot about talent here, but Nashville just inspires me to think so wildly. But I will end this by saying that that was my circle Nashville moment when a Utah girl that got a song in a kitchen from her ex and literally bawled for who knows how long. Literally, I think when I came to my lash lady back home after that, he sent me that song. I mean, it was rough, Tia, wasn't it? I cried a lot during that whole separation. So I guess let's be real, the whole time was rough. But that was so crazy for me. And then to be out in Nashville and decide to just, again, I don't condone these choices for everyone, jump in an Uber with 6 strangers and go back to their Airbnb and then have that same stranger, not knowingly that he wrote the song that I had cried many, many of times to, have him, "Hey, will you just sing this song real quick that I wrote?" I don't even know. I don't even know how to write that, folks. I don't even know. So don't ever think that life doesn't happen for you, is what I'm going to say. Because everything is happening for us always. It's just our perspective. And I think that night, more than any others, I was like, I'm never leaving Tennessee. I belong here. And even if I love that I have my house on the outskirts of Tennessee and not in Nashville, I love the city so much. And every time I say yes to a new opportunity, my soul's just filled with gratitude to just be around it. So, all that to say, if you're looking for something to be grateful for today, how about we go with the opportunity to say yes to something? The opportunity to say yes to something and to be able to not know when in life you're going to have that full circle moment that goes, this is exactly where I'm going to be or I need to be. It's just that reminder. this is where I'm supposed to be. Thank you for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. Until next time, you matter.